Hi, I'm Meg. Welcome to the Inspiration Cafe. Bill?
Thanks, Meg, and we're here to speak with John Kendrick, Director, Conference Systems. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
I guess to kind of get us started, I know we're talking about simultaneous interpretation. In my day, I may have called it translation. What is simultaneous interpretation?
The difference between simultaneous interpretation and translation is simultaneous interpretation is the spoken word, and it happens as the words are being spoken by an individual who's translating information that is being spoken from one presenter or a participant to another. Translation is the written word, so it's translating words that have been written to another language. So that's the difference between the two.
So which is more popular in the meetings and events industry right now?
Simultaneous interpretation, definitely.
By far.
Because you have meetings that are occurring and you have speakers that are speaking to participants, or multiple participants that are speaking, and they're able to communicate as we speak, such as we're speaking. If Bill, you were speaking Italian, and Meg, you were speaking Spanish, and I'm speaking German, we could all understand what the other one's saying. So that's happening as we speak. Translation is just a written word, and that really doesn't come into play when it comes into a meeting situation.
Is there a big time gap between the speaker and the translator and the interpreter?
No, it's done simultaneously.
So it really is
simultaneous. So it really is truly simultaneously. As we speak, the words are being changed into the language that you need to hear them in. So, like I said, if you're speaking one language and I'm speaking another one, you're literally hearing what I'm saying as the words are being spoken.
Is it a complicated setup for planners?
It's not for planners, because the important thing is to get a good equipment company that understands the setup and understands the needs that you have. So making sure that you understand a company, or get a company that understands what are you trying to accomplish, and that makes it much easier for the meeting planner.
Do you have to work with two different companies, one for equipment and services and one to get the actual interpreters?
The best thing that a meeting planner can do is to have a company that provides both interpreters and equipment, and technical design as well. That way it's one-stop shopping.
Much easier.
And it's much easier.
Right, much easier.
And also, there's not the finger pointing, well, it was the interpreters or it was the equipment. Now you have a company that provides all.
Much easier process.
It's a much easier process.
But there must be space implications. So when a planner is, a meeting and event professional is looking at the meeting, to make sure there's room provision for where do you set the interpreters and where does the equipment go?
Right, so that's an excellent question. There are booths that the interpreters set in. So you do have to plan for having booths, and depending on how many languages you have will depend on the number of booths you need. So there will be a location in the room where booths can be, but there's also a provision that the booths can be outside of the room, and they can view the room on a monitor. So it can be done remotely. So the interpreters would be in a remote location, and they would be translating the information to the room via interpretation equipment that the company would provide.
Is this a growing industry right now with the world becoming flatter? It just seems that it would be in such high demand.
With the world becoming more global,
right.
It's definitely a growing industry, because more and more companies are spreading out across the globe, and it's important to be able to provide the access to information for the global world.
Right.
So if I'm a company and I have people that are coming from all different parts of the world, I want them to be able to understand the meeting and what's going on. And the language that they choose and the language that they speak in on a daily basis is what they're going to understand.
Right.
And this simultaneous interpretation provides the opportunity for the participants to feel comfortable in their own language.
Right.
So if I'm a planner and I have 100 people attending a meeting, let's say, and 50 of them speak English and 40 speak French and one person speaks Vietnamese, at what point does it just become not good value to have simultaneous interpretation?
Well, let me look at it, to talk about it from this perspective. If you bring someone in from halfway around the world and you're trying to get a message out to the participant, if you have one person who walks away and doesn't understand what's being said, then the essence of the meeting is lost to that person. So it's important that anytime you have someone that really will walk away with more information, your meeting is much more successful.
Right.
Should a meeting and event professional make that a strategic issue? In other words, in the planning of the meeting, invite people to tell us what your language preference is?
It's definitely, anytime that there's a possibility that there may be an international component, there may be non-English speaking either participants or speakers, then it's imperative that you find out, you contact a company such as Conference Systems, and you will then find out, how do we do this? How do we make this meeting successful?
Right.
And so it's very important that you do that.
How often do you just do like a keynote or a general session versus keynote, general session, breakouts, lunch, dinner, and do the whole entire conference?
Well, it's, once again, depends on the individual company and the planner and what they want. But the reality of it is that if you're going to provide information to the participants, if you're going to have them be able to understand what's being said, the more you can provide that they're comfortable with, the better off they are.
So for planners, meeting and event professionals who are watching, are there 2 or 3 suggestions you can make to them about how to make sure they get the right interpretation company? I know, Conference Systems is, you just went through the meetings you've done, that's remarkable, but how do I know I've found the right one?
Yeah, one of the things you want to make sure is that you get a company that has a substantial amount of equipment and experience with the meetings that you're doing. So having equipment and having the capacity to provide equipment is extremely important. Find out who they're currently working with, what clients are they currently working with, and then also find out what jobs they've done, what references do they have from things they've done in the past. Also, the ability to provide interpreters, which we mentioned earlier, that's extremely important because you want to make sure that they provide professional conference interpreters as opposed to not providing interpreters, because then that's another source you have to go to. So just having that ability to provide your one-stop shopping and have the complete package makes your life easier as a meeting planner, and certainly will make the meeting more seamless.
So I have to ask the question, price, expense. So with the infrastructure, the interpreters, is this a costly endeavor?
It's not. When you stop and think about how your meeting and your message is going to be received, and how much more you're going to get out of it, and what you're going to go back and your people are going to be able to go back and take to your clients, and it's not really at all.
Okay.
And one last question for me is how do I know I got a good interpretation? I don't speak the language, so is there reverse translation or something? How do I know they walked away with the right message?
Well, one of the things that we do is provide only the highest level interpreters, and we've vetted all the interpreters, which is important that you have a company that's done that. And I laugh because we get the people that ask about, well, what about Google Translation? What about using that? Well, we just recently did a big annual meeting for Google, so that kind of answers that question about the need and the level of interpretation that's needed. But it's really about the people and the equipment and the company, and making sure that they've done it and they've been praised in the industry for what they've done. So it's the experience.
Great. John, thank you. Meg and I have been speaking with John Kendrick, Director of Conference Systems, and if they're good enough for Google, they're good enough for you. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, John.